There are a number of reasons Cincinnati has more Fortune 500 headquarters and Fortune 1000 companies today than any other city of our size. One is surely rooted in an operating philosophy adopted by 4 generations of banking leaders named Rowe. And that philosophy helped shape the development of our city for more than a century. On the surface, the concept was simple. Develop strong relationships in the community. Make decisions locally. Make them consistently and with a bias toward community development. The common engine behind the philosophy was a rock-solid belief in equities. The Rowes were big believers in the stock market and saw it as a way to grow personal and charitable assets over the long horizon. William S. Rowe was the second generation to adopt this strategy because, as he told a colleague, a bond will never be worth more than what you paid for it. A good stock may go down, but historically, stocks rise. William's father was the first generation of Rowe men to enter the banking business. William followed his father into the business in the mid-1870s, starting as a clerk at the Second National Bank, where his father served as chief cashier and as a director. After the elder Rowe died in 1881, William succeeded his father as cashier and began building his own reputation as a decisive visionary. At the age of 45, when he was named president of First National Bank in 1902, a local newspaper described William as a man with progressive and aggressive ideas. And with good reason. He oversaw the building of an 18-story headquarters building at the corner of 4th and Walnut, which signaled the start of the city's rapidly growing financial district. At the same time, William started increasing the bank's capital by acquiring smaller institutions. It had become the leading financial institution for the city, but the bank's influence extended well beyond the Queen City. In 1895, in the midst of the gold panic, First National joined a consortium of banks to rescue the U.S. Treasury and strengthen the gold standard. A similar financial crisis swept through the country in 1907 that led to a crisis of faith in the banking system throughout the country. The Cincinnati Clearing House appointed William as president of a committee to resolve the situation locally, and although the economic repercussions were quelled quickly, the panic transformed the way in which Americans viewed the banking system and the fundamental principles by which it was governed. William saw this as an opportunity to institute more and more operating policies to raise the bar on ethical business practices. As he saw it, there was no greater priority than rebuilding the trust from the community he served. His views had national implications as well. They still do. Because William helped build the Federal Reserve Bank to provide the nation with a safe, flexible, and stable monetary system and financial system. William Rowe retired from the bank in 1929, just ahead of the stock market crash. But it's believed his fiscal conservatism during the 1920s established the foundation for the First National Bank's solvency during the Great Depression. Leading the bank through these tenuous times fell to a member of the third generation, John J. Rowe. He worked hard, and like his father before him, Jack had the critical attributes of a good banker: personal integrity, sound business judgment, strong organizational and analytical skills, and a general optimism for the business and for life. After 22 years working in nearly every job at the bank, Jack succeeded his father as president, and he was immediately tested. It was 1929 and a wide-scale collapse of the financial markets was on the horizon. As the government began to take corrective actions, Jack was a high-profile contrarian. When the Cincinnati Clearing House established a strategy to protect banks from the currency runs, Jack took the opposite road. He insisted that the First National would maintain a full withdrawal policy, and it did. When the U.S. went off the gold standard, Jack was appalled. In 1934, Jack left First National Bank to become the president of the Fifth Third Union Trust Company, a position he held until 1955. During his tenure, the bank flourished. Assets increased fivefold. Jack's leadership skills were never a question in the financial circles, but it was in 1937 that the extent of his talents became clearer to all. He was chairman of the County Red Cross chapter at the time. Thousands of families were displaced by the Great Flood across the entire region. The responsibility to develop an emergency plan to house and feed them fell to Jack. For the first time, the bank was not his priority. caring for his neighbors was. And he focused intently on getting help to people who needed it most, working virtually around the clock to manage the volunteer efforts. From then on, Jack's community organizing skills were in great demand. He took prominent positions in various war bond drives and was general chairman of the War Finance Committee for Southern Ohio. He was also an active member of a number of community and civic organizations, all to help build a better city.
He was a very, very sweet man. He had curly hair, he was tall. He loved being with family. He loved obviously his wife. He loved the garden. He loved collecting money and collecting stamps. He was very musical. He played an instrument called the Frisco whistle and I think a mandolin. And at the end of Easter lunch, he would always stand up and toast my grandmother, his wife, to saying lady, and I always thought that was so deliciously old world charm. And then he loved cigars. He used to travel 5 miles an hour down the road in his very large car, going very, very slowly, and you could just sort of smell him as he drove away.
It's very appropriate that Jack Rowe and L.A. Alt be inducted into the Business Hall of Fame at the same time, because they were good friends and they served on each other's boards. I can see them in my mind's eye in the back of the room tonight saying, "Well done, old friend. Congratulations."
Jack's legacy of long days and hard work carried through to his son William S. Rowe II, or Bill. Like his father, Bill graduated from Harvard, and in 1939, he became the 4th generation of the Rowe men to enter the banking profession. He went to work at Fifth Third Bank. Bill worked his way up to vice president in 1949, then executive vice president in 1962, and in 1963 was named president. He retired from the bank in 1985. Fifth Third's operating strategy reflected Bill's conservative views during his tenure. Yet in spite of his predictably conservative operating positions, when it came to supporting the development of the city, Bill was as aggressive as they come. He sensed the potential for growth and the need for the bank to support it.
He was a great guy. He was funny. He had a very wicked, naughty sense of humor. He didn't like spending money, so that's why he was called Dollar Bill. He loved gardening. He loved being with family. He loved saving money, as I said, which is a well-known fact about him. He loved doing his own mowing, and they would take trips, and Daddy would have to stop at nurseries and pick up dwarf evergreens and daffodils. Drove my mother crazy. And he loved the stock market. He didn't play the stock market. He only invested for the long run. He hammered that into us. There was no bonds, never bond. And he was very good fun to be with. He loved sparking really strong conversations. He just loved getting people going. He was great fun. He really was.
He was renowned for his thriftiness. And when asked about how he treated his employees and how could he keep all these employees who were low paid, certainly by standards of the other banks and nationwide in terms of salaries, he had a simple way of putting it. He just said, well, we want to keep them sullen but not mutinous. He really set the stage for the great success of the Fifth Third Bank.
When the city wanted to begin development of the downtown core centering on Fountain Square, Bill took the courageous step of moving to a new second-level skywalk location on Fountain Square. It was just one of the many